Hey everybody, welcome to Precision Machine Shed. I'm Brett, and today I finally got one of the machines that I've been trying to pick up for quite some time now. This is my Series 1 Bridgeport. I've got, I think it's a, don't quote me on this, but it's a 2J2 variable speed head for it. I bought this thing as one piece, of course, and I took it apart to get it home because where it was located, I had to take it apart to get it out. I've been wanting to get one of these machines for several years, and I finally ran across a deal. I went to go pick up actually one, possibly two lathes to get, fix up, and resell. And I got there and I was talking to the guy, and he's like, "Hey, would you be interested in this machine over here?" So we walked back to another room. This was a place, a guy bought a house, he didn't need the stuff anymore, and he just wanted it gone. So long story short, I ended up taking this home instead of a couple lathes. So I actually got this thing pretty cheap. It didn't come with any tooling. I've got a vise for it, but other than that, I didn't get anything. I'm gonna pick up some collets. I got a bunch of cutters. I'm not worried about that, and I have actually an all-brick chuck. I just need to get an adapter for it, an R8 adapter. So it's kind of a bare bones machine, but it does have a few things. It's got the variable speed. The machine itself does show some wear, but it's in pretty good shape yet. It's fairly tight. It could probably use a rebuild at some point in time, but it is very serviceable the way it is, and it will function just fine. It does have the power traverse on it, and that does function, although all the oil drained out of it when I moved it, so I got to fill the oil back up because it sounds like it's low on oil right now, so I'm not going to run it without adding oil. And I mean, other than that, it's a 9x42 table, pretty standard size machine, and I'm pretty excited to get this. I got this guy in place and actually took the knee and the table off of this thing to get it moved here. So last night I just got the knee and the table back on. However, I haven't cleaned any of these dovetails on the X and the Y axis. I did clean up the dovetails on the column and the back side of the knee. I'm going to have to go through and clean these. I don't know if I'm going to actually take this stuff all apart. I probably should, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this all up best I can, clean up underneath, and see where we're at, put some oil in there and see how clean the oil is. I'm sure it's going to be dirty. I'm going to have to replace these felt wipers, front and back, and then the wipers on the dovetails on the column. My goal here today is I've got this thing kind of leveled up. So laying across the table here, I cleaned up kind of the spot under the vise. I cleaned all the gunk off, and then I stoned it a little bit to try and get as flat of a surface as I could. And I got this level, don't mean to bump you there, but I got this fairly level. It's probably within, a thousandths all the way across there, and then front to back here. If we can see that, you probably can't see it as well as I can, but that is about the same. I'm probably going to fine tune once I get this thing all cleaned up and get the head back on here, and we'll go from there. So what I'm going to do here is just clean all this off, get the rust and the gunk and everything else off, scrape it if I need to with a little WD-40 and Croil. Seems to work well to get all this gunk off. So I'm just going to clean away, and you can watch me have fun here. Alrighty, well, that cleaned up fairly well, but you can tell this table has seen better days. It's pretty rough. You can still just barely see some of the original scraping marks on there. I don't know if this thing has been rebuilt or not. I wouldn't put it past it if it has been rebuilt at some point in time, but I can see some of the scraping out on the ends here and a little bit in the middle here. But I'm gonna have to stone this table. I don't have a precision stone, but I got a little flat stone here. and I'm just going to go across and kind of knock off the high spots. Of course, you know, I would want a precision stone. I haven't picked one up yet. I just haven't spent the money on them. But I'm going to just put a little croil on here and just go over the whole thing with this little stone. I think this is a Norton. I want to say this is a Norton stone. I don't know what these are. I use them for touching up little V stone. I use them for touching up cutter bits quite often. Cutters. So my main goal here is not to take any of the original table depth down, but to knock off any just little nick high spots. Well, that cleaned up fairly well. It's you can tell this machine has seen better days. Somebody obviously did a big whoops there, and there's a bunch of little ding marks here and there, which is kind of typical. I mean, this machine is 1977, so it's 40 years old. I don't expect it to be in perfect condition by any means. Next thing I'm going to do here is just go through and clean up a lot of these just metal chips that are kind of stuck in the T slots here. Best I can, kind of get them loosened up, and then just vacuum them all out. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with how that cleaned up. Again, this is a 44-year-old machine, so it's got a few dings and nicks in it, but if I ever get it rebuilt, it'll do for now. The next thing I think I want to tackle is probably the sides and the bottom here, and try and get all these dovetails cleaned up in the back and the front of the table, and get some of these things cleaned up. Next thing I'm going to do is clean these V-ways and this cover best I can. I took the wipers off the back here, and they really need to be replaced. And I'll take these off and we'll see what kind of shape these are in. But this is, I mean, if nothing else, this is usually pretty cheap insurance to keep your ways in as good of condition as you possibly can while you own the machine. And prevent further wear and tear. We'll see what our gib screw looks like here too when we get this off. How far that guy's cranked in. So it's in there quite a ways. Here's our wipers, and I'm gonna go soak these in probably some diesel fuel and try and clean them up, and then I'll put them on until I get some new ones. But that will do for now. Alright, I have this table cranked all the way back towards the column, and we're just gonna clean all this stuff up best as I can. Obviously taking this apart would be the best method, but I'm just gonna wipe all this down and try and get a lot of this gunk off of here. And these usually just wipe pretty well, just wipe off. Usually doesn't take much. This one's been neglected a little bit, but as you can see down at the end here, they get kind of dirty, crusty, but at some point down the road, I'll probably take this thing completely apart or bring it over to Rick at A&D Machine in Roberts, Wisconsin and have him rebuild it for me. That'd be the easiest route. Not necessarily the cheapest, but by far the easiest for me. And he does an extremely good job. As I'm going through here, I can see that there's not a whole heck of a lot of scraping left on the V-ways here on the knee. Therefore, she's got some wear, which I knew for the most part. My plan with this guy is just to get it together and see how it runs, how it works, make sure everything, I mean, if it functions the way I need it to function, it should be fine. Of course, we would all like brand new machines, but not always in the budget. A little bit of staining there, so I'm sure this thing sat for a period of time at some point in time. Alright, so now what I want to do is just put a thin coat of whey oil over all this stuff. I haven't gone through my one-shot oiler yet, but that, I don't know if that's working or not, we'll see, but I know I cracked the reservoir when I brought the thing home. Somehow it cracked along the way. Alright, so I'm going to crank this thing back and do the opposite side here. And on the back side here we can see it's just as kind of nasty. Not just with this machine, but lathes and other machines that have these bearing surfaces like this. I'll go through and clean this side, oil it up really good, run it back, clean the other side, oil it, run it back, clean it, go back and forth, and a lot of times you can get this dirty, nasty stuff out of there. Obviously, the best thing to do would be to pull this all apart, and I probably might have to do that here eventually to make sure all those little oil relief grooves are cleared up, because a lot of the times you get these things so, I want to say neglected. They get dirt and grime and those oil ways get clogged up and they don't get the oil that they're supposed to get. So realistically, I mean, I should be tearing this whole thing apart and cleaning it. I went through and soaked all the way wipers in gasoline or diesel. Either one would work just fine. And they actually cleaned up fairly well, although they will be replaced. But they will work for now until I get replacements. And before I put these back on, I'll give them a healthy dousing of whey oil here. Well, like I said, they're not really in the greatest shape, but they should do me till I need to get the new ones. Alright, let's check the front ones out here and see how they're wiping. And they're probably doing an alright job because they're leaving a ton of oil behind, so looks good. Since this thing is bothering the heck out of me, I'm gonna try and fix this. If you can take a look here, this handle's bent, and of course this one is bent. In the past I have had very good luck straightening these things out, and we'll see if I can continue my luck streak here. So I'm going to pull this off, I'm going to bring it over to the press, and we'll try and straighten this handle out. Alright, I am over at my Famco 3.5C arbor press, and the trick with these things is always figuring out the best way to try and press out the bend. Sometimes you can bend them with a wrench, sometimes you can beat them, but this seems to be the best way that I've found to kind of straighten them out gradually and gently without busting them. This will be my first attempt. So I have a bend, and the bend is right in here, so I'm going to try and push the bend from the top here, and we'll see if we can get this to move. Because my arbor ram here is so large, I'm going to have to get a little coarser in there to try and even it out. I'll try and get this relatively in the middle. Alright, so get my ratchet going here. So I'm going to bounce this thing. See if I moved it any. Slightly better than it was. Still there though. Pull here. So there's still a tiny little bend in there. You guys probably can't see it extremely well, but it's quite a bit better than it was. Now the trick is going to be this guy. I'm going to lay this on a shim so I don't ding it up as bad as I probably will. Get it as straight as I can. You guys can see that there. I'm going to straighten that out. Let's see where that got us. Let's give that a shot and see how that feels. Put it on the machine and check it out. Alright, with any luck, it'll just slide back on here. Alright, put the nut on there so we don't lose our screw. So that feels pretty good to me. It's not too bad. I don't know if these are supposed to be angled a little bit, but this one actually looks to be angled. So it's angled out, and then it's bent back, and then it's straight. So however it was supposed to be, I don't know, but right now it's set up so it feels really good when you spin it. A lot of times you'll bend them back, and then it doesn't always feel right. When it spins in your hand, it should basically, that ball should basically stay in one spot. And if it's bent, it might wobble a little bit as you're going through the motion, and it'll feel strange. So there we go. There's bending a handle back on an arbor press to straighten things out. Next thing I want to do is make sure a lot of this stuff is freed up. I'm not too worried about the nod here, but I do want to make sure that my head feed in and out is functional, and also the rotation of this is really stiff. What I think I'm going to do here is loosen these bolts up a little bit, there's a bracket in there that holds this whole head down to the casting. If I could get just a little gap in there, I'd like to squirt some oil in there, spin it around a few times and get this thing loosened up, and hopefully this thing will spin like a top when we're done. So that's going to be my next project. In order to do that, I'm going to bring my engine crane over here and just put some tension on here, loosen these bolts up just a little bit. And like I said, all we got to do is maybe not even a 1/4 of an inch gap that between the column and the turret casting here, and we'll get some oil in there and get her cleaned up. Oh, we got one side crack there. So all I really plan to do is squirt a bunch of oil in there as I can. The back side. Got about 3/4 of it there. I think that'll probably be enough. I think I dumped enough whey oil in there to probably dump out on the floor everywhere once I let her down here. So let her down, I'll take this off and we'll try and spin it here a little bit. Oh yeah, much better. Take this off. There we go. Much better. That's the way it's supposed to turn. Like a Ferris wheel. Awesome. All right, moment of truth. So I loosened these, and I loosened these two nuts up. There's only one on one side, so two on each side. Two on this side. And here's my handle that's broken off, and I cleaned these up a little bit, so we'll see if it moves. It's pretty tight. There it starts to go. Oh. There we go. Somebody broke the handle off of this guy at some point, so yeah, might be just better off sliding this whole contraption out and might have to clean it. Alright, well I did get the ram slid out here all the way, and I was able to clean up the underside. Probably have to spin it around to get the back. There it goes. So I'll have to spin this head, get the back side, but as you can see there, it's moving a heck of a lot easier. Fingers probably hasn't moved in years. And the other thing I'd like to do, I gotta look at the schematics on this thing, but I'd like to pull this piece out and either replace it or tap, at least clean it up here and extract this broken handle and put a new handle in there, because I'm not gonna do this every time. I need to do this, so. Alright, a little more work with that and that'll be good to go.